Liberation Day, January 20th, 2025, Washington, D.C. Donald Trump took the oath of office for a second term. As the crowd applauded, no one knew. 100 days later, the American economy would be overwhelmed by the highest tariffs in 90 years. February 4th, 001. The first blow struck. A 10% tariff on every product from China, with a click of a button, with a signature. $500 billion worth of trade became 10% more expensive overnight. But this was just the beginning. The first 48 hours, the nightmare begins. Sarah Wells broke out in a cold sweat as she stared at her computer screen in her small office in Virginia. The first week of February. New designer mom bags from China were waiting at the port of Los Angeles. A $150,000 order, half of her company's annual revenue. But the tariff percentage had changed. An additional 10% tax, suddenly, without warning. $15,000, Wells whispered to the customs officer on the phone. I need to pay $15,000 right now, otherwise I can't get the goods. The reply was cold. That's the new rule, madam. Pay up or the goods will wait at the port. Wells swiped her credit card, because she had no other choice. The profit margin was 15%. Now it was zero, maybe even negative. I guess I'm finished, she said to herself. And Sarah Wells wasn't alone. That same day, 3,000 miles away in Chicago, Steve Greenspan was the CEO of Honey Can Do International, a kitchenware company. New products from their Vietnam factories were on their way. He had fled China during Trump's first term. I'm smart, he had thought. Vietnam is safer. On the morning of February 4th, his assistant rushed in a panic. Boss, do you have any news? What news? Tariffs, not just China, everyone, 10% minimum. Greenspan looked at the screen. White House statement. Fair and equal trade with all trading partners. Vietnam, 10%. Mexico, 25%. Canada, 25%. This is impossible, said Greenspan. My whole strategy has collapsed. Everything has gone to waste. His phone rang. Suppliers, shippers, banks, everyone was asking the same question. What are you going to do? He had no answer. Wall Street collapse. April 2nd, 2025. Trump called it Liberation Day, the day the American economy would be free. 2 p.m., White House press room. Trump stepped onto the podium. He had no papers in his hand, just that familiar smile. Today, we are taking a historic step. We are protecting the American worker, a minimum of 10% tariffs on all countries, and much more on countries that engage in unfair trade. The list was long. China, 34% additional tariffs. Switzerland, 31%. India, 27%. Vietnam, 20%. South Korea, 15%. Unfair trade is over, said Trump. America will no longer lose. Markets collapsed within 15 minutes. Dow Jones, minus 4.2%, a drop of 1,700 points. S&P 500, minus 3.8%. NASDAQ, minus 5.1%. Technology companies were bleeding. Apple, Microsoft, Tesla, all in the red. It was one of the fastest declines in Wall Street history. Traders on the New York Stock Exchange were screaming, stop order everywhere! Computer screens were red. Millions of dollars were being lost per second. Michael Burry, the famous investor who predicted the 2008 crisis, wrote on Twitter, the 2025 crash has begun. Trump's tariffs are killing the economy. But Trump didn't listen, because he had another plan. Counterattack, China's move. April 4th, 10 p.m. Beijing time. The Chinese Ministry of Commerce held an emergency press conference. Minister Wang Wentao announced with a cold expression, the United States has launched an unfair and unilateral tariff attack. The People's Republic of China is forced to retaliate. The list was read. 34% tariff on American products, soybeans, 50%, automobile parts, 40%, aircraft equipment, 35%. And if America raises, said Wang, we will raise too, without limit. April 8th, Trump responded, 50% more, a total of 84% tariff on China. April 9th, China responded, 91%. April 10th, Trump, 145%. China, 125%. The economic war peaked in 3 days. Mid-April, the first victims began to appear. Rosalind Goodwin was a small business owner in South Carolina. Gabby Bowes sold hair clips. They imported them from China. With a 145% customs duty, the math was simple. Cost of one clip, 50 cents. Selling price, $3. Profit, 75 cents. With 145% customs duty, cost of one clip, $1.23. Profit, 2 cents. 2 cents, Goodwin told his daughter. We're making 2 cents profit per clip. We can't even cover the cost of gas. Goodwin looked for alternatives. Manufacturing in America. He had been looking for 8 years already. Every American manufacturer had given him the same answer. Keep manufacturing in China. It will be 3 to 4 times more expensive here. Besides, the raw materials will still come from China. Early May, Gabby Bowes closed its doors. An 8-year business died in 3 months. In California, furniture manufacturer Tony Chen was experiencing an even bigger disaster. He had 45 employees, annual turnover of $12 million.
He imported from a Chinese factory and sold in America. At the end of April, he realized orders had stopped completely. We got 147 orders in April, he told his CFO. May, 3 orders, 3. Customers clearly stated, we can't buy furniture with a 145% tariff. It's too expensive, we'll wait. But Tony couldn't wait. He had employee salaries to pay, rent, loan payments. June, the first layoffs began, 15 people, then another 10. They entered July with 20 people. In August, Tony Chen went bankrupt. 45 people lost their jobs. 23 years of business went to waste. Apple exception, technology privileges. April 12th, 6 a.m. Silicon Valley was on high alert. iPhone, iPad, MacBook, all manufactured in China. With a 145% tariff, the price of an iPhone would rise to $2,000. Tim Cook, Apple CEO, called the White House directly. He spoke with Trump. The details remained confidential, but the outcome was clear. April 13th, White House statement. Technology products are duty-free. iPhones, computers, chips. Only 20% duty. Wall Street was pleased. Apple shares rose 7%, Microsoft 5%, Nvidia 6%. But small business owners were furious. Sarah Wells from Virginia wrote on Twitter, Tim Cook went from 145% to 20% with one phone call. I paid $15,000. Is this justice? Thousands of small business owners shared the same anger. The big players got away. We died. Alan Murphy was the CEO of Sea Intelligence, a maritime logistics analyst company. The numbers were frightening. Furniture manufacturers in China are getting 0 orders. Toys, textiles, shoes, sporting goods, everything has stopped. Container orders have fallen by 53%. Brian Burke from Seco Logistics added, ships are arriving empty. Hundreds of containers have been abandoned in Chinese ports because you can't get those goods with a 145% tariff. Mid-May, the terrible truth emerged. Trade stopped. It really stopped. Exports from China to America, minus 18.3% annual. Canceled orders, hundreds of thousands. Abandoned containers, more than 50,000. Irreversible damage, said Murphy. This relationship can no longer be repaired. The Pentagon's fear. Late May, a secret meeting at the Pentagon. Subject, Chinese customs and the defense industry. The problem was simple. American military equipment was dependent on parts sourced from China. Semiconductors, rare earth elements, lithium batteries, all came from China. With 145% tariffs, these materials became inaccessible, or so expensive that the budget exploded. Colonel Richard Stevens, a supply chain expert, wrote in his report, "Chinese customs are a national security crisis. F-35 production has slowed down. Drone batteries are running out. Finding alternative suppliers will take 3 to 5 years. What will we do until then?" There was no answer, and China knew this. On October 10th, it made its move. The rare earth bomb. October 10th, 2025, Friday. The Chinese Ministry of Commerce made a bombshell announcement. Starting November 1st, strict controls will be placed on the export of rare earth elements. Every order will require special permission. Rare earth elements. 70% of the world's goods are produced in China. Smartphones, electric cars, military aircraft, missiles. They all depend on these elements. And China was turning off the tap. On the same day at 3:47 p.m., Trump wrote on Truth Social, "China has taken an unacceptable step. They are threatening America. 100% additional tariffs on China starting November 1st, a total of 230%. We are also halting exports of critical software. 230%, 230% tariffs. It was a death sentence for trade. Wall Street crashed again. Dow Jones, minus 2.8%. S&P 500, minus 3.1%. CEOs were in a panic. General Motors, Ford, Boeing, Apple, they all depended on the Chinese supply chain. Nothing would work with a 230% tariff. October 13th, 47 Fortune 500 CEOs wrote a joint letter to the White House. "Mr. President, the economy is collapsing. Please negotiate with China. 230% tariffs would be suicide." Trump responded, "CEOs have been dependent on China for years. Now they are paying the price. Make America or you will fail." Last-minute agreement, October 30th, 2025, Busan, South Korea, APEC Summit. Trump and Xi Jinping met face-to-face for the first time. The meeting lasted 3 hours. Details were not leaked. But the result was clear. Trump wrote on Truth Social, "Historic agreement with China. Tariffs are falling. America won." Agreement terms: China reduces from 125% to 10% for 1 year. U.S. reduces from 145% to 30%, 20% fentanyl plus 10% reciprocal. China reopens rare earth exports. U.S. increases soybean purchases. Markets celebrated. Dow Jones plus 2.1%. S&P 500 plus 1.9%. But the reality was, both sides lost. The price: disaster in numbers. December 2025, the last month of the year, the figures were appalling. American consumer, average household plus $1,200 per year cost increase. Customs revenue, $236 billion in 11 months. Inflation, 0.7% increase from customs alone. American businesses, bankruptcy filings, 34% increase. Small business closures, 17,000 plus, linked to customs. Layoffs, 240,000 people, manufacturing and import sector. Economic growth, GDP estimate, minus 1.3%, would have been plus 0.4% without customs. Unemployment, 4.8%, 3.9% previous year. Consumer confidence, lowest level in 15 years. Chinese economy, exports to America, minus 18.3%, but to Europe, plus 8.9%. To Southeast Asia, plus 14.6%. To Africa, plus 27.2%. Total trade surplus, $1 trillion. Record. China lost the American market but gained the world. The end of Sarah Wells. December 2025. Sarah Wells was packing the last boxes in her Virginia office. Sarah Wells' bags lasted 11 years. It died in 2025. "I got customs duty twice," she said in her last interview. 10% in February, another 10% in March, a total of $15,000. Then 145% came. "That's when I knew, it's over." She tried to raise prices. Customers didn't buy. "Am I going to pay $89 for a $50 bag?" they said. She tried to move production to America. No manufacturer agreed. "The raw materials will still come from China. You can't get rid of customs." In November, he fired his last employee. In December, he shut down his website. Trump said, "Make in America," Wells said. "But how? Who will make it? How will it be made? Tell me." There was no answer. There never was. Last hope in the Supreme Court. November 5th, 2025. U.S. Supreme Court. Case. Learning Resources versus Trump. The question was simple. Does Trump have the authority to impose tariffs using the IEEPA law? On May 28th, the lower court ruled, no, Trump exceeded his authority. The tariffs are illegal. But the tariffs were still in effect because the government appealed. On November 5th, the Supreme Court hearings began. 9 judges listened to arguments lasting 4 hours. The result? Not yet known. It will be announced in January 2026. But one thing is certain, if the Supreme Court rules against Trump, the government will have to return $100 billion. Costco, Walmart, Target, hundreds of companies have filed lawsuits. "If the tariffs are illegal, we will get our money back," Trump wrote on Truth Social. The court is playing political games. The tariffs protect America. No one will get refunded. Lawyers think differently. If the court says it's illegal, repatriation is mandatory, said a trade law expert. $100 billion, maybe more. No winner. December 2025, the 11th month of Trump's presidency. The tariff war continues. 30% tariffs are still in effect to China. 10% minimum tariffs are still in effect to the whole world. But nobody has won. America. Households are poorer. Businesses went bankrupt. Production didn't return and won't. Economic growth stalled. China lost the American market but gained the global market. $1 trillion trade surplus, record. Exports diversified, risk reduced. Small businesses, 17,000 plus closed. Hundreds of thousands unemployed, dreams shattered. Sarah Wells stopped as she loaded her last box into the car. She looked back at her office. 11 years. 11 years of sweat, tears, and hope. "Trump said tariffs are good," she whispered. "They weren't good to me." She locked the door, for the last time. And she understood a truth. In economic wars, there aren't just two sides. There's a third side, civilians, small businesses, ordinary people, and they always lose. By the end of 2025, Trump's tariff war continues. A Supreme Court decision is awaited. Thousands more businesses face the risk of closure. And one question remains unanswered. Did America really win with a 30% tariff? The numbers tell a different story. But Trump doesn't listen. Because for him, winning is measured by headlines, not numbers. And the headlines always say, Trump won. Is it true? Nobody cares.